What's up, Moto Buddies? Mike here from Taco Moto Co. Taco Tours. We are on the Slick Rock Trail at Moab, Utah. We're doing a little sunset rip, a solo Slick Rock sunset ride, and just highlighting a few of the features on our Taco Moto bike. This is the bike that we use as a test platform. It's a 21 500 Exc-f. This bike has got some Baja miles on it and some Idaho. We did the Idaho Grit 1 on this last year. It was about a half run. We ran out of time on that run. There were a lot of down trees, a lot of issues with just getting through those trails. So because of that, we weren't able to complete the full grit run, but it was a good attempt. So we've just completed a couple of changes to this bike since the Idaho run. I made one video while we were in Idaho, and I meant to post a couple more, and I kind of screwed up and I deleted them somehow on my phone. So I never got around to making any follow-up Idaho videos. So this is sort of a part 2 of that, but then there's some new standalone stuff on here that we'll talk about. So this bike has been, I guess, continually upgraded. One of the things that we work hard at doing is refining the package. So I think what we're after is trying to create an EXC machine, an EXC platform that is multi-use. It's a bike that excels at a lot of the categories that it's in, but it's not the best in class in certain things. So case in point, we've been a couple of days up here in Moab running around doing some of these really cool technical trails, and we've had a grip of 300 TPI bikes, and those are arguably more suited to this kind of technical terrain, this sort of riding. And the 500 is a little bit out of place because of its displacement, because of the weight. And so what we've tried to do with this machine is come up with a platform, with a formula, I guess, that gets this bike as close to a multi-use machine as possible. So with this bike, we've conquered a bunch of Moab miles. This is a good platform to do like a tour of Idaho or a Idaho type ride. You could do BDRs on this. You could take this and do all sorts of things that ordinarily you might need 2 or 3 bikes to accomplish. With one, you're able to, again, you're not excelling at any of those one categories, but you have a machine that does incredibly well, extremely well, very competent at all of those. And so a guy can have one bike to do lots of things instead of having a bunch. And for some of us who have maybe limited garage space or limited funds, or we just don't want to fool around with setting up and outfitting multiple bikes, arguably the 500 EXC platform, to me anyway, is the most versatile machine out there. And so we've got some stuff on this that we continue to improve and refine to make it even more so. So looking at this bike in comparison to how we had it trimmed out in Idaho, we've got a couple of new additions. I think we've put on some P3 frame guards. We took off the Acherbis, which are great, and we just threw these on because I happen to like the look better than the plastic. The carbon fiber is super cool. I think we had the pipe guard on there before, so that's not new as far as I can remember. Got the Graves on here. So when we were in Idaho, we ran the stock muffler with the resonator intact, Pro Moto billet end cap, and an ultra silent insert. And that's an absolute winning formula. I really like that. So some of the advantages of that that setup is you have a pipe, you have a muffler that came with your bike. So there's no additional cost other than $149 for the end cap. And it's super durable. We bang that thing really, really good up in Idaho, and you don't really care if you smash it because it's that stock muffler. So you go with something like an FMF 4.1 or a Q4 or the RCT system or the Graves here, and now you've sunk some costs into a muffler, and guys are often worried about the scratches and dings that they're going to get, and that's just going to happen. That's the reality. My view is that motorcycles are toys, and I have a good time playing with my toys, and so my toys get scratched and banged up. And if you have a different view, then you'll probably want to stick with the stock muffler, throw a Pro Moto on, which is a fantastic solution. I happen to love it. The Graves offers a step up in performance and a reduction in weight and a huge up in the looks as far as the bike goes. So this is, in my opinion, the best muffler for the big bore thumper KTM bikes. We've tested it against some of the FMF products and then the stock one, like I just mentioned. And as far as the dyno numbers go, I'm not really going to pump that because the honest truth is a lot of these make within 1 or 2 or 3% of each other. So the reality is there's a lot of marketing that goes into a muffler. There's a lot of salesmanship that happens in the muffler game. And what you're looking for is how does it feel as far as where is the power curve, where are the power dynamics happening, rather than what do the dyno charts look like. Because as we know and have talked about before, dyno numbers are easy to fudge, easy to fake. People make them up. People lie about the numbers. So having a dyno number or representing with a graph what the dyno number is, to me, is like looking at, I don't know, a rich guy's financial statement. It's probably a lot of smoke and mirrors and a lot of one-sided gamesmanship to gain some sort of advantage over someone else. So, and so it goes, I think, with a lot of motorsports components and especially motor mufflers and maybe some of the power components. So what is it about the Graves that I like? I like the look a lot. I think it's just fantastic. I also like that it pushes the power dynamics lower in the throttle sweep. So I run it with the end cap in. So it comes with this little DB insert, this DB killer, and it's very effective. It's incredibly effective at knocking down the sound. It also pushes down the power band a little bit lower than it would be otherwise. So without it, it's a straight through pipe. And then with it, you've got nice resonance, nice back pressure, just a very deep, I love the sound of it, and it happens to work incredibly well as a package with the Get ECU and the Taco Moto maps and the traction control knob all together, you know, and you could bundle into that the Recluse CX. That, for me, represents all of the right components for making this, for getting the power to the back tire in ways that preserve rider energy, in ways that maximize the cross adaptability of this bike. So again, back to kind of where I open up with, I'm after a machine that doesn't peg the needle in only one category. And you can do that, and we can do that for you too. So, and I get those requests from time to time where a guy will be building a snow bike or a super motorbike, or we helped set up a guy who's a flat track racer. And so if you need to specifically hit a target, a bullseye for a specific kind of riding discipline, that's fully doable and totally on the table. And we help guys do that all the time. I don't do that with my own personal bikes. So this machine here is really what I'm talking about. It represents a multi-discipline machine that I can do anything with. And so I'm constantly trying to refine this and find weaknesses and then plug those with, you know, new methods or new components to make it as broadly adaptable as possible. And I think at this point, after 2 days of really beating the hell out of this here in Moab, I'm beyond impressed with that power package. Again, the Recluse CX, and then the Graves and the Get ECU and traction control and the Taco maps. That by far has been the best setup, and it's better than any other muffler setup. And when I was in Idaho, we ran it with the Power Commander, a JD tuner, the Dobek EJK, and the Vortex, all sort of back to back to back. And I liked them all. And I have only good things to say about every one of those components. And for certain riders and specific, after specific things, they're at different price points. They have different sort of objectives that they're trying to accomplish. And I really like those components for sure. So where I'm heading in, you know, the direction I'm going with my bike and what I'm after on a personal basis, the Get ECU is the one that I've chosen for some of those reasons I talked about, traction control. And the idea there with everything I'm doing is energy conservation for the rider and then maximum performance and maximum capabilities. Another thing I've added since the Idaho bike is full race tech, revalve, and respring. And well, no, I need to pause that. I did not respring this because I'm within the rider weight. So stock springs are 165 to 185, and I'm just at the top end of that thing. I'm about 175, and then, you know, with gear, so that's probably 185, 190. I happen to like my springs to be, I like my bikes to be a little bit undersprung, intentionally. Set the sag correctly, but I like the spring to be just at the top end. There are others who like to pick a spring. They may be at the bottom end, and they'll pick a spring more towards the top end. So some guys will like an oversprung or undersprung or very correctly sprung, and I happen to like them if they're a little bit on the soft side. And that lends itself well to this rock bashing kind of riding that I like to do. And so what the Racetech kit did is it converted the Explorer 48 was previously, when it was stock, is an underwhelming system, and it's a split function fork. So you have one is compression and one is rebound. And so what happens with the Racetech kit is you split everything apart, you tear it all apart, and then we now have two mid valves, whereas the other fork only had one. So now we have two. And then down on the bottom, we have two adjustable compression valves, where in the stock one, we had compression valves, but they were not adjustable. So that is a dramatic improvement in terms of just the technology and the hardware inside of the forks. And then in the shock, we put in a bladder and then the gold valve system as well. And so some of the benefits that I've experienced running this here in Moab is just the pillowy softness. I was telling somebody the other day, it feels like it's a hovercraft now. So we're on a dirt road, say like a double track, and just you've got all the rocks and gravel of a double track, and it just seems to be incredibly smooth and float right over the top of that. Handles the whoops, night and day difference over stock. I hated hitting whoops on the stock bike. In fact, I had to slow down and handle stock whoops or whoops differently than I can now with this setup. So I can hit these, I can charge whoops much faster. Something else too I noticed about the rear end with this new setup is I have a lot more confidence going into a drift than with the old. There were a couple of times where I was in a drift on a double track and I thought I had lost, and I run Moose. So let me talk about that really quick. We're running the Motos, Tractionator, Enduro, ST in the rear. So that's our SI. So that's, no, the IT. So in the rear, it's the Motos, Tractionator, IT, the Enduro IT, intermediate train. And in the front, it's same tire, but the soft intermediate. That for me is the money compound, the money setup. And on the stock shock, there were a couple times where I had to slow down and look back to see, I felt like the rear tire had gone away. Like, you know, I run Moose, but it felt like it was a flat tire or a very low tire in the rear. And I just realized now, because of the improved performance, the dramatic improved performance of the rear shock, that it was basically just the rear tire not being in contact with the ground as well as it is now. It's much, much, much better. The other thing that I've noticed too is the ability to charge into square edges. That was something that was it would often bottom out the other suspension, and then the adjustability of the clickers. So the recommended setting from Racetech was 1.5 out on the compression on the bottom clickers, and then I adjusted it another half turn, and that was instantly noticeable. And so small changes, small adjustments to the clickers produces a very noticeable and a dramatic improvement and result. And in the stock suspension, I remember going full out in compression and then full in on rebound and not feeling a difference and not really being able to do much as far as the clickers go. So the new Racetech setup is unbelievable. It's incredible. I wish I would have had it in Idaho. I intentionally went to Idaho with the stock suspension to get a feel for what that would be like. And, you know, it was not terrible, but there were so many times where I would be in a section where I just knew what a tuned valve Racetech suspension felt like, and then I was just disappointed that I didn't have that there, and it was my own fault because I chose to do it on stock anyway, just as a bit of an experiment. And so this is going to be so much better when I go up to Idaho again this summer and we try another attempt. It'll be dramatically better. So that is a massive improvement. Love that. I don't see, as I just stand here and look, I mean, there's a few minor things, but nothing really of note probably to talk about, just little fit and trim pieces. I think the radiator guards are different. So I believe I had the, let's see, these are the Enduro Engineering now. And I like these because they're they protect the radiator, the whole width of the radiator down the side. And then, we had Trail Tech before, and the Trail Tech are like a lot of others where they do a great job of protecting the front. So any damage coming into the radiator, great job, but not much, if any, on the sides. So that is an upgrade that was needed for the bike. Let's see, I'm looking at a couple little bling things. So I put the spec bolts. Spec bolt has a really cool dress-up kit. So it's like a motor bolt dress-up kit, and they're different than the stock nickel-plated galvanized KTM bolts. So there's that. A little bit of an oil leak there on the seal for the oil filler cap. Took a big hit. So here's just a little update report. Notice how this foot peg has got a big kink in it. That's from hitting a big rock. Now, if that was a steel peg, it would do the same thing. It would bend. This is a Pro Moto billet Evo Air foot peg, and because of the really high quality aluminum that they use, it bends, and that's what you want. There are some of the lower quality Asian import foot pegs that I have seen pictures where you take a hit like that and it'll break, it'll crack. And so yes, I have a bent foot peg. No, I'm probably not gonna try to straighten it out, although, you know, I may, you know what, I will. There you go. I'm gonna do it as an experiment to see. But I would rather that foot peg, you can see the contact area there. I would rather that foot peg bend like that as opposed to what could happen, and I've seen this where the center pivot shaft here will pull out and it'll crack the frame, split the frame, and then you've got frame damage as opposed to some foot peg damage. So I can straighten out that foot peg or just change it out. I may do it, like I said, I may straighten it, and then we'll do sort of a long-term review on how that goes. So not that unusual to bend Pro Moto, where some of the other import pegs will likely, the aluminum pegs will likely break. So in my opinion, that's what I want. That's good. Let's take a look at this headlight. No, that's different. So this is the ET Racing out of Poland. Look at all these bugs on here. Down by the Colorado River earlier, picked up a bunch of bugs. So this is the 8. So this is known as the dual 8. So there's dual rows, 8 lights, 8 LED lights in there. And then it's advertised as 4,400 lumens on the low and then 8,800 on the high. And that's also 4,400 watts, or 44 watts versus 88 watts. And the stock bike, this stock Exc bike, has about 150, 160 watts available for lighting. So more than adequate. We're gonna do some long-term testing on this light. It holds a lot of promise. I really like the look of it. It's very unique. I've had a couple of people comment on how unusual it is, and it is. It's attention grabbing, that's for sure. And then as far as the adjustability, the one thing I don't like about it, and this is similar to the stock setup, is you've got the bracket here, if you could see that, and that's how you swing the light in and out. So in my opinion, the Moto-minded setup is the ultimate as far as adjustability, because you can just reach down with your hand and move that up or down. So that is maybe at this point the one ding against it, but the little bit of limited lighting or night use that I've had with this, I'm super impressed with it and like it a lot. We threw on a Takamoto co-branded Tugger strap. So these are made by Tugger in Utah, and then we just had them embroider our with our font, our name on there. Stoked how that turned out. Okay, so down here on the foot pegs, once we upgraded with the Race Tech, I took off the Achereby's lower fork lug protectors because those were more cosmetic than functional, and these are really good and super durable because we've got our expensive Race Tech kit components down here on the bottom, so I wanted to have some protection there. I threw on the STR. I don't think I had this for Idaho. Front caliper guard, and this is carbon fiber, and it's got probably HTMW, the really good ballistic nylon plastic as a guard here around the edge. And it's taken some good hits, and it's gotten itself scratched up. So those would be dings that otherwise would have been transferred into the rotor. And the reason why you want to protect your rotor is as this thing gets bent and sweeps through the pads, it will aggressively and accelerate the wear of the pads. And you can tune those out on your own. You can take a file, and when you have dings on your rotor on the high points, usually up on the tops, you can grind those out with a file, no big deal. And then we threw the rear one on, and this is fiberglass, and they call it G10. That's the material that they use there, and you can see how many more dings the rear has, and the rotor is clean, and there's no it's not deformed anywhere, so it's doing its job. So that's sort of a look at our long-term Moto shop bike and a review of what's been going on with it. Maybe I'll make a mention about the Twisted Development carbon fiber bars. Continue to absolutely love them. They just impress me. These are not for, the only maybe ding on them is the fact that the hand guards are not real crash resistant. They do tend to bend in. I had a tip over and on some rocks, and so it pushed this in, and then it changes the eyelets here. It sort of changes in, pulls in the bar to the center. So I love them. They're incredibly flexible. They dampen vibrations. They work really, really well for keeping arm pump down. There's just so many benefits to them. Really happy with them. We have a video that we're working on right now. We're going to show all kinds of bar setups and then compatibility with like flex bars and stabilizers, lots of other pieces and components. So look for that coming soon. All right, live at this moment anyway, from Moab, Utah. It's beautiful. Going to continue on the Slick Rock Trail. It'll be a nice sunset ride. Head back into town for tacos for dinner. And in the comments, let us know if you have any questions about this bike or setting up your bike. We're happy to talk to you. We prefer to text or email. The phones sometimes are hard to get to. We might be in the dyno, or we might be out on a ride. So if you call, be patient with us. We may prefer to have you send us an email instead. Or we're out here in Moab or in Mexico or somewhere cool. And we hope you do the same. So happy to help you get your bike set up so that you can go out and get some adventure.